Hi everyone, welcome back. This is Adam. In the last video we created this chart right here, which is an automatically sorted chart that compares whatever this is that we select to the rest of the athletes that we want to compare to based on the criteria that we set. It'll look different to you because when we did it, the bars were vertical. I switched to horizontal because it was better for the space. I didn't anticipate doing it. And you also notice these charts are probably a little bit different too because I tend to restyle things. But you develop the framework for all these things and you develop the components. You can style them however you want. In this video, we are going to start diving into strengths and weaknesses. So that includes identifying strengths and weaknesses, and also perhaps writing some more descriptive information about them, like using text instead of just numbers and charts. And we're going to go through those things in the next couple of videos. In this one particularly, we're going to start to get the data that we need to identify strengths and weaknesses. To do that, we will go to our chart data area where we store all of our important information. And we're going to create another little area here. Let me just check and see. Okay, so this is a dynamic list of people. So we do not want to put anything under here because this list could increase. So if we were to add more people to our database or to this team, this list would go down more, so would everything else here. So let's do this. Thinking out loud. Maybe we'll just do this over here. How disorganized I am. So we'll create a little area here and let's call this, I don't know, we'll call it strengths and weaknesses. And this might not be enough space, but this is just how I'm segregating out information. Actually, maybe I move that up one, right? Yeah, move that up one so that everything lines up here. And to start, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our admin area. There are lots of different ways to do this. I think this is probably the simplest way to do it. Here, we're going to decide what we want to include in our strengths and weaknesses. We have all of these metrics, and we already have checkboxes saying which ones where lower is better and which ones where higher is better. Let's add another column here. So I'm going to add a column to the right because I want the checkboxes to stay there, and I don't have to copy and paste them. And we're going to call this SNW. I'm going to call it SNW true. I'll call it SNW true false. It doesn't really matter. And with these checkboxes here, we're going to identify which of these metrics we want to consider as a potential strength or weakness. And whether it's a strength or weakness will depend on its value relative to a cohort that you select. So, or to the person's history. It could be anything you want. I'm going to pick CMJ average, broad jump, 10-meter sprint, 20-meter sprint, not body weight. Need body fat, VO2 max, trap bar deadlift relative strength, and bench relative strength. Now you may be asking, if you've done the scoring stuff, you're like, Adam, why don't you just use the scores that we developed? And I would, actually, in this case, and I'd prefer to do that. I'm not doing it that way because there are people that haven't gone through the scoring stuff, but I will show you what it looks like when we do it with the scoring stuff because I think that that's actually really valuable. So if it were me and I were doing this, we already created scores, and I would want to know just in general, power, speed, fitness, strength. What's their biggest weakness? What's their biggest strength? For me, from a programming standpoint, that gives me enough information to periodize and start programming more effectively. Okay, so we identified which ones should be included in strengths and weaknesses. Now let's go to our chart data and let's get a list of these. So we go to our chart data and let's move down a cell here and we'll go equals unique, open parenthesis, filter, open parenthesis. We've already done unique and filter before, so I don't want to continue to go through it step by step or this whole thing will take forever. So hopefully you're progressing and getting more familiar with these things. What do we want to get a unique list of? Let's go to our admin and let's say we want a unique list of column E, or our testing metrics, comma, because that's what we want to bring back. Now, what conditions need to be true for them to come back, or what filters do we want to put on? we want to bring back everything where G, column G, is equal to true, and close the parentheses and click enter. And now we'll have a list of all of our metrics that we decided should be in the strengths and weaknesses area. One thing to note and a reminder, let's go to our admin area. The way that we did these metrics is dynamic. We're taking everything from our testing data set and putting them in here. So if you add in columns, especially early on, then it's going to bump everything else down, and then these checkboxes won't be accurate. You'll have to uncheck and check again. So just be cognizant that order matters in your testing database up here. It affects the order here, which affects the order in your chart data, which affects what goes into strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so be aware of that before we move forward. Now the next part is easy. We actually already have all this information. So I'm just going to move this down one. I'll call this metrics. Call this copy and paste and call this metrics. The next part is easy. We just copy a formula that we've already done, and we're pretty much all set. Because what we want to get here is we want to get the, I'm going to call this value. This is the value that the player has or the athlete has for this metric. And there are a lot of different ways you can go here. You could do their most recent. You could do the one for the testing session that you select. You could just do their average of all time. There are a lot of different ways you can go. The way that I'm going to do it is I want pretty much this whole dashboard to be controlled by this camp. The whole purpose, the primary purpose of this part of the dashboard is I want to pick a camp and see how this athlete fares at that time point. So we're going to base it around whatever we select here. And because we already have a formula written for that, which are right here in column G, we get the athlete value for whatever metric this is. We get the athlete value for when the athlete's name is equal to the player that we picked and when the event is equal to the event we selected. So that's perfect. I'm just going to copy this body weight value here in the formula inside of it, go down and paste it right in here. Now the only thing that we're going to have to change here is what we're matching. So the value that we're looking for is matched to whatever column in our data set this is. F36. What's F36? Well, F36 is probably nowhere. It's a person's name now, since we copied and pasted the formula around. We want to match the CMJ average, or whatever metric this is, to our headers to get the value in that column. So let's click N36 and let's lock in the N so that we can drag the formula down, and we'll click enter. And that means that this person's CMJ average for the test session that we picked is 27.23. We can copy this value and paste it all the way to the bottom so that if we add more metrics, it'll be accommodated for. And here are all their values for each of these metrics. We could easily check and uncheck things, and then the value for whatever metric we check will be here. The next thing that we're going to do is calculate a percentile for each of these values. And again, you can go a lot of different ways here. Percentile of what? Just like we did if you did the scoring with z-scores. Z-scores based on what? Based on the team and the position and the session, or just the team all time. So there are a lot of decisions that you have to make. For me, for this percentile, I'm just going to do all time, all athletes, their percentile. I'll show you how to do it with criteria so that you can do that if you need to. But let's copy this and paste it over, and we'll go percentile. Okay, this is going to get complicated pretty quickly, but I want to go as slow as possible and finish within the next 5 minutes. Because we haven't done this formula before, and you might want to do it for your own scoring system instead of z-scores, we're going to go through it slowly. Okay, to get a percentile, we use a function called percent rank. Equals percent rank, and here we see it. Now what does percent rank need? The first thing that it needs is the data. The second thing it needs is the value that you want to get the percentile for. So if we want to get the percent rank for CMJ average, we can go to our testing data set and select, where is CMJ average? CMJ average for our data. And then do a comma, because that's the data that we want to compare for comparing all of it. And the value is going to be the value that we just got for the athlete. So we want to know their percentile. So let's go to our chart data, and we'll select this as the value, and we can close the parenthesis and click enter. And this tells us that this value is very high. It's in the 98th percentile for CMJ averages. Now, if we copy this formula and paste it down, there are going to be issues because now we're trying to compare a broad jump value to CMJ averages in column L. So we need this to be dynamic, and it works the exact same way as we have been doing with average ifs and max ifs. We're going to use index to find the column that matches up with whatever metric this is, and that'll be our data set where we find our percentile. So instead of testing data L to L, we're going to go index, open parenthesis, and use our named ranges. We have testing data, which is our entire data set. So we want to look for something in testing data right here, comma. We don't care about the row because we're getting all the rows. Another comma. The column we need to match, so we'll go match, open parenthesis. We want to match whatever metric this is, which right now is CMJ average, comma, to another named range, which is testing headers, comma, 0, exact match, and we'll close off the parentheses. So now we're saying we want to get the percent rank for the data, or we want to compare this value that we have selected to all the data that's in the column that matches this metric name. So we're comparing the value here to everything in CMJ average, and if we click enter, we still get the 90th percentile. But now, if we copy and paste this formula down, now we get something for broad jump 2. Great. This is the first part of it, and I'm realizing now there's no way I'm going to finish before 15 minutes. But next part of this, before we get more complicated with the end formula, let's see how do we do this if we want to just get the percentile for, I don't know, the team that this person is on. This team, let's just say, the Monstars. Well, how we do that is we are going to add a filter function. Right after percent rank, we're going to go filter, open parenthesis, and the range that we want to bring back is still this, a dynamic range based on the metric that's here. But now we're going to do a comma, and our condition is going to be, let's go to our testing data, is that when the team here, the team is equal to, and I'm just going to say 1 for now, and close the parenthesis, and then we'll see that this is still all within the data of the percent rank, and after this comma is the value for the percent rank, and we'll click enter. So the team should not be equal to 1, it should be equal to the team that this person is on, and we'll click the Monstars here, that value, and click enter. And now we have a different percentile rank. And actually, if we let's just lock this in quickly so we can copy this formula and paste it down and see that it's different. This is this person's percentile rank within their team, not just their normal percentile rank with everybody, but just within their team. So we added that criteria using the filter function and this condition right here. And now let's remove that. So let's remove all of this. Or what I'm doing at least is in removing the filter and clicking enter, and now we're back to normal. Copy it, paste it up, and we're back to our normal values. Okay, the last part of this is that what happens when we get to 10-meter sprint. I'm going to copy these. I mean, these aren't good examples because we don't have any context. But what's happening is that this person is not actually in the 71st percentile. They're actually in the 29th. Because we don't know, or because we need to invert the percent rank when a lower value is better. So to do that, now this is where it gets kind of crazy, so I apologize in advance. We need to write an if statement. I'm going to drag this down because I'm going to need a little bit more space in here. We're going to say if, well, before I get into it, we're going to say if in our admin area, if lower is better is checked next to the metric name, then we want to get we want to get 1 minus the percent rank. But if it's not checked, or if it's false, then we just want to get the normal percent rank, because that means higher is better. So here we can go equals if, open parenthesis, if index, open parenthesis, and let's hop over to our admin. I don't know how to, let's remove the parenthesis and see if we can get over there now. Perfect. If index, open parenthesis, if f, index f, which is lower is better, comma, match, open parenthesis, and then we're going to do 1, comma, column E, comma 0, close the parentheses. What I'm saying is we're going to look and check, we want to bring back the value of a box that matches up with the metric of interest in our chart data area, which right now is a 1, but you'll see what happens a little bit later. So if the box next to the metric that we want equals true, comma, if that's true, then we want to do 1 minus percent rank of all this stuff. If it's not true, and now we can copy all of our percent rank stuff here. If it's not true, comma, then we just want the normal, and I'm going to hold down Alt and click Enter, to go to the next line. We just want the normal percent rank, not the 1 minus percent rank, because higher is better in that case where the checkbox is not true. And now if we close the parenthesis or remove a parenthesis, and before clicking Enter, because I know what's going to happen, I've tried it like 5 times, is I'm going to copy this entire formula that's in here. Because when I click Enter, it's going to like break. So if I click Enter, everything seems fine, but when I go to my chart data, I can tell that it didn't work. I don't get what goes on between sheets, but the reason why I copied it, and you should copy yours too if you have trouble getting back and forth in between sheets while you're doing this. So we can copy it in here, or paste it in here and click Enter. And now the only thing that we have to change is, we can lock in the F's here, lock in the E's here, and instead of the number 1, we're going to make it whatever metric this is, N36, and I'll lock in the N, not the 36, so we can drag it down, click Enter. And the one thing that I'm going to need to add here, just because I had to copy and paste that formula, is before this F to F and before the E to E and the N, no, not the N36, but we need to denote the name of the sheet, which in this case is admin with an exclamation point, and that's because of the whole moving back and forth in between sheets and things getting messed up. So I'll go admin, exclamation point, F to F, and then before E to E, go admin, exclamation point, E to E. We should be able to click Enter, and we get a value. Great. Now, just to keep things safe, we'll do if error. So if there's an error, if error, open parenthesis, if there's an error with anything going on in here, what do we want to do? So comma, quote, quote, or blank. And close the parenthesis and click Enter. And we can copy this formula and paste it all the way to the bottom in case we have a bunch more metrics, I guess. And here we go. These are the percentile ranks for the person that we picked. Right, like I was saying before, they're really in the 29th percentile or so per 20-meter sprint. And a 5% body fat, that's really low. It's nice to see that they're in the 100th percentile because if they were in the 0 percentile like they were before, that would mean the lowest guy has got to be way below 5, and that's unhealthy, I would imagine. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to get the strengths and weaknesses. We're going to get the major strengths and weaknesses by getting the maximum and minimum values of the percentiles that we have here. And remember, these percentiles are based on things that you decide. They're either based on the entire cohort like we did, or you can use the filter function and get specific subgroups to compare. And they're also based on the values and how you're getting those. And we're getting the values for the person based on the event. You can get the person's average or a bunch of other things. Again, just an example. But in the next video, we're going to identify the major strengths and weaknesses, and ultimately we're going to display them on that page. So I hope that you found this video beneficial. If you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, like it, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me. Let YouTube know that this stuff is decent for some people. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next video.